Hey, welcome everyone. I'm Paul Comfort. Great to have you with us today on this 60-minute rides and demand webinar with our guest from Lethbridge Transit. The purpose of our webinar today is to inform our customers and those in the industry about the benefits of our new microtransit app, Rides on Demand, ROD, via Lethbridge Transit story and experience. Plus, we're going to be highlighting how easy it is to get started. It's closer than you think. We also want to share with you a short pre-recorded Rides on Demand demo and for you to see how really this program works. We have two great guests with us today. Jeff Gillette is GIS and application specialist from the city of Lethbridge Transit. Jeff started at Lethbridge Transit in 2015. In this position, he's worked on implementing next stop announcements, transit signal priority, My Ride. With the redesign of the transit network into CityLink, he took on the role of planning and scheduling and is the lead on implementation on the Rides on Demand service. Prior to working at Lethbridge Transit, Jeff was a GIS specialist in the remote sensing and the oil and gas sectors. Jeff, welcome. And our other guest is Timothy Sanderson, who is general manager of transit for the city of Lethbridge, and he's been in that role since December of 2020. In this position, Tim has led Lethbridge Transit through a complete network redesign and is redefining the role of transit in post-COVID Lethbridge. After beginning his career as a bus operator with Winnipeg Transit in the early 1990s, Tim has made and had a varied transit career providing executive leadership in operations, planning, and human resources for North American transit systems, including where I was just at a month ago and on my podcast today, Nashville's MTA. He's also been with Des Moines DART, where I was just at 2 weeks ago. He's been with Brandon Transit in Ann Arbor. He's a frequent presenter at both APTA and TRB conferences. Thank you so much for being with us, Timothy.
Thank you, Paul.
Yeah.
Happy to be here.
And then I also want to introduce Tanya Bruce, who is the Senior Product Manager for TripSpark. And Tanya, thanks so much for being with us today. And I know you've got a big part in our program.
Thanks, Paul.
So we're going to pose some questions to them at the end of the at the end of our webinar today. So if you have questions, you can start to put them into the Q&A chat function there at the bottom of the screen, and we'll make sure we get those questions to them as they pop into your head. You can type them in, and then we go to the Q&A at the end. We'll address them. So the city of Lethbridge is a longtime transit agency partner with TripSpark since 2014. They recently implemented TripSpark's new microtransit app, as I mentioned, Rides on Demand. It's probably too early to realize the full impact that Rides on Demand is going to have for Lethbridge Transit, but they're going to share their story via presentation and cover the deployment experience, the expectations for Rides on Demand, and other exciting things happening at Lethbridge Transit. Then I'll speak with Tanya about her vision for Rides on Demand and how it came to be developed. We'll share a short Rides on Demand demonstration video, and then I'll open up the floor to questions or comments. And as I mentioned, you can feel free to put them on the online chat anytime during the webinar. We'll address them at the end. We have about an hour to pack all this in. So let's go ahead and get started as I turn it over to our two guests, Tim and Jeff.
We're Lethbridge. We're in Alberta. Our claim to fame is that we're 2 hours away from Calgary. So as you can see, we are considerably out in the middle of nowhere, but it is a beautiful part of the world. We're a fairly small city, a little over 100,000 people here, but we've got very strong ridership. We've got a university and a college here, and really just especially, I'm not sure what the mix is with Canada-US transit agencies, but ridership is generally higher in Canada anyways. So for fixed route, we've got 10 routes and we run 50 buses on those 10 routes. At our demand response, we have 4 demand zones and we run paratransit as well. 2.5 million boardings, that was pre-COVID. Don't ask me what we're at now. Who knows? It depends on any day of the week and what the restrictions are and all that other sort of stuff. So anyway, just to give a little bit of context where we are.
So I just want to thank everyone for being here. Thank you, Paul and Tanya, for putting this together with everyone else from TripSpark. Just going to kind of go over a quick summary of what software we use here at Lethbridge Transit that we work with TripSpark with, and take it from there. So the partnership, as Paul mentioned, started in 2014. So that was about a year before I started here in Lethbridge. But what we do have here is we have streets for our CAD AVL system. Novus DR was originally purchased for the paratransit service, but as you'll hear, we utilize that for Rides on Demand. Amenities for our customers, we have My Ride, trip planning, we have the next stop announcements to assist our visually and hearing impaired customers. Paratransit, we have passenger portal, so customers can book their own rides. We also have IVR notifications, and all of our paratransit and fixed route fleet are outfitted with Rangers or the Trapeze MDTs. So we're well into the TripSpark ecosystem. So our on-demand, I'm going to interchange all of the terms, and I apologize right now, but rides on demand, microtransit, and on-demand transit. We here in Lethbridge started looking at an on-demand service in late 2019. And by early 2020, we realized that on-demand is a good service that to provide to our customers in low-density areas, new neighborhoods, or underserviced neighborhoods. By March 2020, as everyone knows, the emerging pandemic and resulting public health measures drastically altered our ridership numbers and travel patterns. As most of you may know, in our case, our boardings decreased by 90% at the start of the pandemic. At this point, we needed a solution, and on-demand transit became that solution, or became more urgent that we needed this solution to keep running the transit here in Lethbridge efficiently and safely. We couldn't shut down public transit. We needed to ensure frontline workers, essential workers, and the public could make their essential trips. So we had to continue running service, but in a safe and reliable way. So our first foray into on-demand was a quick phone call with Tanya, just asking if TripSpark had an on-demand service. And at that point, they were currently working on rides on demand, but it wasn't quite ready for deployment. So over the course of a couple conversations, we decided we could try to put together an ad hoc on-demand service using Novus. In this case, we just called it ride by reservation. It wasn't quite a true on-demand service, but it enabled us to maintain reliable and safe public transit. The nice thing about this is it only took us about 2 weeks to put it together. The TripSpark customer care team helped us modify Novus, import the buses, import the bus stops. They modified the Rangers for us. They even had passenger portal enabled for us and created notifications as well. It was quite a bit of work. I mean, it only took us about 2 weeks maybe, but they were long days. The quick turnaround time implementing this project was only possible because we already had all the software and hardware components required. Plus our drivers and office staff, including myself, were fully trained in Novus DR, the Rangers, and all the other accessories we had. In short, we basically ran our service for 4 months. Other options for on-demand solutions had a 3 to 6 month timeline to implement, and that just was too much lag time for us. So fortunately, with TripSpark's help, we were able to do our ride by reservation or on-demand service for 4 months, from it was April 4th to August 8th. Once the province here in Alberta started reopening July 1st, the demand increased and we went back to fixed route starting August 8th. Overall, we had a really successful 4 months with the ride by reservation service, and I think it would kind of be like the alpha to the rides on demand software that we're presenting here.
Okay, so based upon the experience that we had with ride by reservation and all the really the good things that worked and the things that were challenging, City Council asked us to implement some form of demand response system. Their original idea was, well, let's just scrap the entire transit system and do demand response overall. But we did have the conversation with them, and at the end they decided to implement some zones and low ridership areas that were demand response, and then use those resources and redirect them into making the fixed route much more robust and more frequent. So this was an opportunity for us to redesign the entire system, and we increased the speed and frequency in high demand areas. And then in those areas that still had ridership, but it was low ridership, we implemented demand response through rides on demand. So again, from a fixed route perspective, again, direct connections to high ridership areas. This really allowed us to go to the places where our customers want to go, to the university, to those high density student housing areas, to Walmart and Superstore, and just those general places, to the hospital, places of high ridership and good frequency on there. So we partnered that and that 10-minute frequency in some areas with our demand response zones, which fed into these hubs. So all of our hubs are located not just at some spot on the route. They're located in strategic areas that also meet up with generators, with stores or high density housing. A few things on our demand response. We've got 4 zones. You can book a trip. It's all the demand response zone or work is interzone. So you can go from curb to curb within any zone, or if you want to go outside of the zone, you can go get picked up at your home and then dropped off at one of our city hubs to transfer to the fixed route system. And then you may have that similar transfer on the other side of the trip if you're going from a residential area to a residential area. The zone sizes vary on time of day, day of week, but we try to keep them as consistent as possible to make it easily understandable. We use Rides on Demand to operate the demand zones, and it's been working great going forward. A couple of the caveats that we have, and we've got a lot of requests from the community to do this, but we've been very resistant to it. We only book trips at time of travel only. So when you're ready to go, you book the trip. We don't do subscriptions. We don't allow book aheads. We don't do any of those kinds of things. That allows us to really manage the demand a lot better. And our service standard is pick up within 20 minutes, and we've been able to meet that. Again, the implementation of Rides on Demand was collaborative and incredibly smooth, and we can't say enough about working with TripSpark, that we really got a product that really matched what our customers in Lethbridge needed, and really allowed us to tailor the solution to our community and to the way that we were going to structure demand response with our relatively unique operating environment. And one of the biggest things that I can say, being through many of these types of projects over the last few years, is not that we didn't have disruptions going through with this gigantic transitions, but none of them were related to tech, and none of them were related to TripSpark, and that which is huge, because that's always the biggest concern that we have is what happens if the whole thing shuts down or we flick the switch and it doesn't work. Absolutely zero problems with that. Also, our operators were already familiar with the interface. We've been using Novus for a while, and so there was virtually no learning curve. We had a lot of trepidation from our bus operators saying, well, how do I learn this? How do I do it? But when the day came, it was like, just follow your ranger, just like you would on anything else, and it worked seamlessly. And we had a number of operators come say, boy, I was really worried about this, but then when we actually did it, it was way easier than I thought. The app interface is intuitive and easy to use. Again, a lot of trepidation from the community on how to use it. We had a few small issues with that. Again, worked with TripSpark in order to kind of iron them out. One of them, I think, was related to a timer, or somebody didn't press the go button on it. But again, TripSpark's been fantastic. And again, that is not an area of concern that we've had from our customers. Multiple ways to work. We always feel the best way is to use the app. That it gives the direct influence or the direct interface to the system. We think that's always the best way, and that's what the majority of our customers use. But we also offer, for those people that don't have smartphones, 311 to call 311. Now, when we first started off, the 311 operators were using Novus in order to book the trips, and Novus works great for that application. But for booking a quick, fast, and easy trip like that's on demand at time of travel, it could be streamlined a little bit. So again, we worked with TripSpark, and they provided basically a rides on demand interface that is very similar to what the customer sees, just in order to book those trips and really assist them. So we're doing basically the same thing. And then the last way they can book the trip is to ask the driver when they show up at the bus, for example, if they're off a transferring bus or something like that. And then the driver just contacts dispatch, and dispatch uses the RD interface. Here's a little bit of our system map. There is on the left is our before slide. As you can see, no demand zones, fixed routes everywhere. One thing that I can say, the map doesn't really indicate the level of complexity that our system had, but a lot of one-directional, single-directional loops going through there. So in a lot of cases, it would be counterintuitive. You get on basically going the opposite direction in order for it to loop around. Your trip to work may take 10 minutes, but your trip home might take an hour. Again, it was a very, very, very strong coverage-based system. On the after side, you can see in a lot of these residential areas and these low demand areas, we have demand zones. And then all the other routes you can see, it's pretty small, but take my word for it, are just way more direct and again, also have increased frequency on them as well. So what are the outcomes? We're only 6 weeks into this process, but already it's been very, very promising. If we take a look at the two charts that we've got on here, the gold line is where we were, and so I got boxes over. Let's see if I can pull this over so I can actually see those numbers. I got people covering them, but anyways, the gold line is the baseline, the pre-CityLink baseline. So you can see that for our customers per revenue hour or passengers per hour, we were a little bit somewhere around 7 passengers per hour, which again, not great. Our post-COVID is somewhere around 15 or 16, but you can see that after CityLink, we're able to do this. So really what this allowed us to do was to take our very valuable fixed route assets and really concentrate them in areas where they're going to be used. And then if you can take a look at the ridership also increased under this. Now, at the end of the day, as we may have mentioned, I believe it was on the slide, this wasn't, when council asked us to do this, they also asked us to cut $350,000 from our budget. So this wasn't a service expansion. This was a service reduction. So with rides at demand, with using this demand response model of transit, we were able to reduce our expenses, increase our efficiency, and increase our ridership all at the same time. And that's it. Just a couple of next steps. This is a work in process. Every service change we're going to be adjusting. We've got a number of small adjustments that we're making in November of 2021. In March of 22, council is going to decide. This is effectively a pilot project, a very elaborate pilot project of redesigning our system. But they're going to decide whether or not CityLink will become permanent, or again, what changes that we may need to make to the market or to the model. Got a little mission statement there for our CityLink project, and then if you are really more interested in this, feel free to reach out to us, or a lot of this information is online. So, real, thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Tim. That was a great presentation by both of you. Appreciate it. Jeff as well. And you guys are going to stick around and maybe be involved in some of the Q&A in a few minutes. Next, I want to move over to Tanya Bros, who's with us at TripSpark, and she's kind of the one that helped develop the program and the software program that is doing such great things for your city. Tanya, welcome. So tell us a little bit about developing it. I mean, what was the catalyst, or what was the reason why we wanted to develop this app?
Well, really, Paul, the catalyst was talking to our customers. So that's sort of where all of our ideas come from for our products. So, you know, we were talking to them, finding that they were facing some challenges, you know, offering service like Lethbridge there. You know, some of our customers actually that have our Novus or Pass software were actually offering, sort of doing what Lethbridge was doing. But doing it by letting people call in and book rides, so offering general public on-demand service. So that takes a lot of resources for the transit agency to sort of manage. So
very good. And what problems does Rides on Demand solve for Lethbridge and other transit agencies? In addition to that, reducing the number of reservations you need to pick up the phone.
Yeah, so it really depends on the transit agency. You know, every problem's going to be different. So, you know, as you heard today, Lethbridge was sort of directed to cut their budget, but they didn't want to cut the service that they were offering to their residents. Some agencies are facing, with urban sprawl, they're getting new neighborhoods, they have to provide service to those new neighborhoods, but there just isn't the ridership there to justify having a fixed route service. So, so what they're doing is they're, in those cases, often standing up a first mile, last mile service and bringing people from those new neighborhoods to, transit hubs where they can take advantage of the fixed route service. So, sometimes it's a matter of being able to extend service. So, and time-wise, so being able to, provide people safe rides home at night. So, and that's important because a lot of agencies, they feel it's important to be able to get people to where they can work. And if those people don't have access to any other type of transportation, the transit agency is who they rely on. Doesn't make sense, again, to run buses, through the night, picking people up at 2 a.m. on a fixed route service, but being able to pick those people up, when they get off shift and take them safely home, is a way to do that. So, I even have one customer that I visited, and they're doing it all. They're offering, they're in a rural area, they're offering a multitude of services on the same run. So a driver may go and pick up a paratransit rider at their doorstep. Then they're out in the country and they pick up the next rider at the end of their driveway because, they're outside of town. Then they may go through a town and pick up, a number of riders at, the gas station that's considered a meeting point. And then they go on and drop, the conventional riders at a transit hub again to pick up fixed route, and then continue to take that paratransit rider so they make their appointment on time. So, a lot of that's, a lot of management and coordination. And, the nice thing is the PASS and the Novus back office software, helps manage that. So really what Rides on Demand becomes is another way to book a ride using the same demand response back office software and algorithms. So the other thing that we did is stand up the 311 operator app, working with Lethbridge. So they can use the Novus and PASS back office software, but, they had sort of said, we'd like to be able to have something that's very similar to what the riders are using. So the team worked quickly to do that. So really the benefits of implementing Rides on Demand, like I said, is another way to book a ride through Novus and PASS, along with, call taking or passenger portal, and, making efficient use of the resources. As Tim called out, there was nothing new for his employees to learn or for the drivers to learn. So I think, Paul, you said at the beginning, with Rides on Demand, standing up a public on demand or microtransit service, you're closer than you think.
And does it require any kind of hardware on the bus?
No, they use the same terminals. So if an agency is using DriverMate or Rangers, it works both with both of those.
And what about training for the drivers?
The drivers are, it's the same software that they use today, offering their current on-demand services or paratransit services. So there's nothing really different for the drivers to learn.
And does a software like this or a program like this normally need to go through a procurement process, or is it because it's kind of like an add-on to something they already have, maybe it doesn't have to?
Yeah. Again, it'll come up to individual agency rules, but with this, it's just an app. It's an add-on, as you said, to our Novus and our PASS software. So it's very quick to deploy, and basically all an agency does is set up a different service type in Novus and PASS that takes the rides from Rides on Demand.
That's great. Anything else you want to share about it before we show the demo?
Last thing I want to say is what you're going to see in the demo is a result of a lot of collaboration with our customers. So Jeff, who you met today, there's other customers. They were in design sessions, provided feedback. We did a pilot and they provided feedback. So really, this isn't a TripSpark product. This is a product that TripSpark developed in cooperation with our partners. I'll say we co-designed it. So.
There you go. That's the
Thanks,
best kind
Paul.
of product. Sure. Thank you, Tanya. All right. So here's our demonstration of the Rides on Demand application in action with Lethbridge Transit.
Lethbridge Transit really cares about their customers. Despite budget cuts, they were able to maintain and even improve service by redesigning their fixed route network and by introducing microtransit using TripSpark's Rides on Demand app. Rides on Demand helps Lethbridge Transit meet the growing needs of their community by supporting a variety of public on-demand services. It did not take much time for Lethbridge to implement microtransit, as Rides on Demand works with the existing TripSpark demand response software they were already using for their Access-a-Ride service. Riders love how simple it is to use, too. They simply download the app on their smartphone, and when they're ready to book a ride, they simply indicate where they want to go by entering an address, picking a location on the map, or selecting from one of their stored favorites. They can even add other people, such as family or friends, to their ride request. If they need extra space for a wheelchair or a bike, they can request that too. Rides on Demand automatically locates a nearby ride, and it lets the rider know that their vehicle is on its way. It's that easy. There's no guessing with Rides on Demand. Passengers know exactly when their ride will arrive, and they can track their rides on a live map, and they get SMS alerts and reminders of their vehicle's arrival too. Rides on Demand enables transit agencies to provide ride-sharing service using agency vehicles with people heading in the same general direction, traveling together. This gentleman is taking a first-mile ride to connect to fixed route. He could also have selected a curb-to-curb ride within the travel zone. Whether there's just one passenger or several traveling together, passengers are efficiently picked up and dropped off in a continuous flow. The app's dynamic algorithm ensures that passengers arrive at their destination on time, every time. Thank you for watching. To learn more about Rides on Demand, visit tripspark.com/ROD.
That's great. Microtransit is one of the hottest trends across Canada and the US right now, with cities all over moving toward that. Tim, what's been what would you say the response has been generally in your community to putting this out there? Especially, I'm interested in what your political officials may be thinking about. Are they happy with it? Your funding sources?
It's just been a really interesting process, because when we first announced this, it was heralded. Everybody was very excited about this. But then when the details come up as to what actually transit on demand is, and again, there are some limitations with it, there was a lot of reticence with the community that we had to spend a lot of time working for it. There was a lot of whataboutism, where, well, what about somebody that doesn't have a cell phone? What about somebody that doesn't speak English? What about somebody that's visually impaired? What about? And our big message was let's just get to actually those people that have those challenges and work with them. And I think really by working through the community and really just being patient with our customers and holding their hand through the first few bookings, it really took off. And what we've seen is some of the zones, we didn't really see any ridership growth on at all. They're kind of dogs. We get a few people on them. But that's why there's demand service out there rather than big buses driving up and down the road. But then there's other zones that we have that have really picked up, and we think that by offering it, not only are the previous customers using the system, but we actually have some new people on the uptake. Our metrics are off the charts. So council asked us to improve the efficiency and effectiveness of the system. We told them that there are going to be some people that are going to be disenfranchised with this, and they said, "Okay, improve the efficiency and effectiveness." And as you can see from the numbers, that's mission accomplished. So,
yeah, that's great. It is. I think this type of microtransit that this app allows for really does create more equity and inclusion in the community. Because, as you said, some routes, now that we're coming out of the pandemic, some routes may not need that 40-foot bus. But if you move it because it doesn't justify, the amount of passengers per hour you need to have there, you're going to leave some people behind. So in order to keep them, being able to provide mobility to them, microtransit really is a great solution.
Yeah, it really just allows us to really, for all those coverage routes, to provide that vast coverage. The people are giving a transit option, but we can use those 40-foot buses just in places that they're designed for high frequency, straight corridors through dense areas, and they work great.
Yeah. So on pricing, how have you all priced this as compared to what it might cost to take a taxi or another TNC?
Well, right now, and then this is not necessarily as part of a design, but we're in the process of procuring a new fare structure or fare collection system. So we're free right now on the demand trips. The key is that the 98% of the trips are transferring to a fixed route bus, and they pay their fare at that point in time. And it seems to be working really well. The fare isn't really necessarily the barrier because it's part of a link trip.
Gotcha. Okay, very good. And Tanya, if people, I know that we told them, where they could go online to find out more about this. You've been involved in this and kind of living and breathing it now for quite a while. I mean, if I'm a transit agency CEO, I'm like, yeah, if I don't have something like this already, I want it. So what will be the process of actually making it happen? So let's say I'm a decision maker in a transit agency, which I've been in a number of them. And I'm like, yes, I want that. What should I do right now?
If you're already a TripSpark customer, it's easy. Just reach out to your account manager.
Okay.
So it's like I mentioned earlier, it's just sort of setting up a new service type in their current back office software, setting up the Rides on Demand app. And to do that, you just need to provide us your colors and your logos and what, key information you want to provide to your riders, and we customize it for you. But it's really quick and easy. So, and the price point, it's a SaaS product, so the price point to get started is very low.
That's great. Yeah, that was a great video. I also want to make sure we give a big shout out to Deshaun Panchu of Lethbridge Transit for shooting the footage for the video. It's a great, real easy to follow video and easy to understand, and showed exactly what was going on with the graphics and all like that. Great job. Hey, we have a few questions coming in, if you guys don't mind. Renee Jordan asks, what percentage of users use the app as opposed to calling in on your call center? Who wants to take that?
I got that one. Okay. Right now, we're about 60% are using the app, and then 40% are calling in either through 311 or through our dispatch in the early morning or after hours.
Gotcha.
Anticipate that'll rise, but yeah, that's where we're at right now.
Okay. And then another one, maybe this is for you, Tanya. What are some of the areas in US and Canada where this is being utilized?
Well, Lethbridge was our very first customer. So they're the ones that are up and running with it now. And we are in our project managers are in the planning phases to stand it up with a number of other customers. So I'm excited to get them up and running with it and see it in live. And now I can actually travel, so I might even be able to go down and visit them in person.
There you go. And then probably for you, Tim or Jeff, is there a minimum number of revenue vehicles per zone and area? What is the average wait time goal?
Sure. No, there is. Normally we've got one per zone right now. Well, we're feeling now, but we're going to be balancing that based upon the demand since this is all new. But that was our starting point, was putting one per zone. The average wait time goal, our service standard is that we'll pick you up within 20 minutes of when you request the trip. And I don't think that we've been unable to meet that. If we have, it's been a rare occurrence.
That's great.
I think I just wanted to quickly bring up a couple other questions that were submitted. I think they were kind of answered, but maybe just to overtly answer them. The first one is this compatible with Pass? Which of course it is. Novus and Pass, you're good to go either way. And then go through a sample booking. We did that via the video. And then there was one question which Jordan has answered, but maybe Tim and Jeff, if you have anything to add, which is what vehicles are you using for Rides on Demand?
Yeah, we're using, we've got ARBOC paratransit vehicles that we're using right now, but that's only because we didn't procure them especially for it. There are existing accessorized vehicles, and I think we'd probably be looking at something a little bit smaller if this becomes a permanent project.
And you're doing that with your own drivers?
Yeah, we're our own drivers. And I guess actually that's a really good thing, a really good point. Why Rides on Demand was so appealing to us. We have in our contract we can't contract out for this type of service with our union. So going to a third party just wasn't available for us. So really having the ability to get a product that uses all of our existing stuff, all of our existing hardware, our employees are familiar with it, our own equipment and everything like that. a huge appeal for us in order to do that.
That's great. Very good.
There was a question that came in. Are you using the same application for paratransit?
We're running both with Novus, if that was the question. If you don't have Pass, I'm not sure, I think it works on both, but yes. We have
yeah, and then the other thing I think too, when I was down visiting with you folks, you actually had some of what had been your paratransit customers now are using the Rides on Demand app as well.
Yes. Yeah, we do have a few that use both services now.
The other thing I would like to add is being in Canada, we're, unfortunately, it's probably not the right word, but we're not restricted by the ADA as far as booking goes. And so one of the things that we're taking a look at is how do we can we use Rides on Demand to really transform our paratransit network so that those people that require a paratransit vehicle have true freedom and can just simply say, hey, I want to go now, call, and we'll have a bus to them within 20 minutes rather than going through subscription and booking a week ahead of time and all the other BS that has just come historically from paratransit. So that's our next project on our agenda is to see if we can leverage this a little bit more because it just works seamlessly for us.
Well, it looks like a great product, and I think we will look to see the continuing great results you guys are going to get in Lethbridge and the other cities across North America that adopt this. I think you're going to see very positive results. It's been a pleasure to be with you today. I get to talk to, in my role as host of the Transit Unplugged podcast and author of several books on public transportation. I get to talk to folks all the time. And it's great to see practical hands-on solutions to help people with mobility in this post-COVID world. The role of public transit really has changed, as you've mentioned. It's not just about the 9-to-5 commuter anymore. It's never really been all about them, but they may not even be the main focus anymore. Now it's about providing mobility for everyone in the region to all of life's opportunities. And something like Rides on Demand really is a tool to permit that to happen. Take care, everybody. Stay safe.